The ARDC National Skills Forum, self-service online training for researchers, what works. First off, I want to acknowledge that I'm coming from the lands of the Kaurna people and pay my respects to elders past and present and anybody with Indigenous heritage on the call. Sovereignty was never ceded. If people would like to put where they're coming from today, please feel free. Okay, so just a reminder that we're recording this. We're going to put it up at YouTube. You're going to get some information after this saying, hi, thanks for playing, and you'll have a link there. You're encouraged to turn on your video just so you can see each other. Questions, I've only got one brain. I can't read the chat at the same time. So we'll do the questions at the very, very end. So please hold them, but then we can. That doesn't mean you can't chat in Zoom chat between each other. So please feel free to do that. Okay, so this is the ARDC National Skills Forum. The purpose is to facilitate knowledge exchange across the trainer community and showcase digital research skills, development activities, resources, and best practices across the sector. And we're kind of doing a best practicey one today. This forum, we've been, I think this is number 7 now. So we've been sort of going for about 7 months. It's monthly. We have an annual skills summit, and we'll talk a little bit about that at the very, very end. But these are made just for the community to get together month by month when that summit isn't happening. And it's for skills practitioners to have a conversation in public. And the nice thing is if you miss one, it's recorded so you can find it. Okay, so today, I'm going to be joined by 3 guests, and I'll talk a little bit about the topic in a second, but we've got Adeline Wong, who's Skills Development Lead Learning Design for the ARDC. We've got Darcel Melby, who is the UX engineer who has made a transformation as part of a team for ARDC's Nectar. And we've got Dr. Mark Quiroga, who's a senior research data specialist at the University of Melbourne, who's been involved in a really, really cool way of displaying a lot of information in a very elegant way. Okay, so the topic is self-service online training for researchers, what works? It came about because I work for the Research Data Commons, the HAS and Indigenous one, and one of our partners, the Australian Internet Observatory, asked Adeline as learning designer and me, can you tell us some sites that we can emulate, that we can have a look at as we create our own set of resources for people to use our infrastructure? What works, what looks good? So of course, what we did is we crowdsourced it. We went back to our skills team and we said, hey, what do you reckon? What are some good, you spend your days sort of with your head in these type of things. What are some good sites? So we came up with a list of 20 good sites that we could share as good examples who have got it right in making it easy in some way for researchers to access and learn about enough to use infrastructure. As we did it, ARO also asked us to do a little presentation on it. And as we were doing it, we thought, well, we're not going to do an audit of these and actually say, well, this one ranks high or whatever. But what we did is we noticed there's some things here that this is why we're nominating this one. This is why we're nominating this one. It's a bit of column A, a bit of column B. But we noticed that there were some things that we could actually share that were kind of useful to think about as part of what you're doing when you are sharing resources in this way. 2 of the resources on that list were the Nectar self-service resources, which have undergone quite a change, and MDAP's, I don't know what to call it, but it's a really cute and groovy way of showing a lot of information about online humanities tools to use data that people might be interested in using from a wide range to really hone it down. So we're going to talk a bit about those. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with Adeline, who's going to talk a bit about the background to what we did to produce this document with the sites and things to think about. Over to Adeline.
Okay, thank you, Kit. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Adeline Wong, and I feel lucky to be able to work with and learn from a wonderful bunch at the ARDC. I sit in the skills team at ARDC, and my focus area is on learning design. So going on to the reflection question. Before I go into details about the preliminary scan and what the 20 sites are about, I'd first like to invite all of you to think about one new thing you learned how to do recently. So what was the new thing you learned how to do it, and how did you learn how to do it? So we will revisit these questions as we explore the shared features or elements across the preliminary scan in a little bit. So, as Kit mentioned, the skills team put together a preliminary scan. Here's what the scan looks like. Some of you might have already explored the link to the scan in the Eventbrite registration for the event today. For those of you who didn't have the opportunity to, I'd like to invite you to explore the preliminary scan via the Zenodo link or via the QR code at the end of the session today. Okay, so moving on to a quick overview of what the scan is about. So what's in this scan? This preliminary scan highlights 20 effective online data skill sites for researchers, and as Kit mentioned, it includes Nectar Research Cloud's user support resources, which Darcel will be sharing in a bit, and MDAP's interactive tool for HAS research. I'm not sure if I'm labeling it right, but I found it really exciting to be able to interact with it. So I'm calling it an interactive tool. Please correct me if I'm wrong, Ma, which Ma will be showing later. So personally, I'm really excited to hear firsthand from Darcel and from Ma in terms of the learning design, in terms of the design considerations which have informed both these resources. So this preliminary scan highlights characteristics of effective learning resource sites aimed at researchers from a learning design perspective. The sites are good examples. So the sites are good examples of one or more aspects such as usability, and by that we mean how user-friendly it is, pedagogical alignment, it looks at how the resources help build on users' skills and knowledge, and support for diverse learning pathways. So essentially how well the resources are connected, and we also pay attention to the overall experience to support progressive goal-oriented skill development. So what's different about this scan? Well, as Kit mentioned earlier, the scan is community sourced and it's validated by the community. So there were elements in each of these sites that resonated with us. One thing to note, though, is that the scan does not provide a systematic analysis of all the design elements for each site. So this is not a systematic review. It is a preliminary scan and it's light touch. So we would like to invite you to share examples of effective learning resource sites for researchers which you've come across in the spreadsheet we'll share towards the end of the session. So there were some commonalities we noticed in the review of the 20 sites outlined in the preliminary scan document. And this is an overview of the cool features we notice across the different sites. Each element plays a role in how effective the learning resources are for building data skills. So these design elements directly impact the learning experience. By platform integration, and in this section, I'm going through each of the various design elements. And by platform integration in UX, we consider the platform where resources are parked in how easily users are able to access learning or user support resources. So I'm using the terms learners and users interchangeably as they sometimes overlap. And we also pay attention to how easily users are able to find related resources to support them in their learning. With the next design element, we consider how well the resources are organized. Is it clear to the user how the materials are grouped and how the users can go about accessing what they need? So here we're concerned with the structure. And with the next design element, that's navigation and discovery tools, we considered how easily users are able to find what they need. This could be shaped by features like a search box at the top of the page or other visual cues that help users find what they need. Moving on to the next element, variety and format of resources. Here we consider the range or the types of learning materials available, as users might have different learning styles and preferences. So some learners might prefer videos, others might prefer textual guides with thumbnail pics, other people might prefer interactive tools. At this point, I'd like to invite you to revisit the question you reflected on earlier. So how did you learn how to do the new thing? For example, did you watch a YouTube clip, or was it some written instructions, or did someone demonstrate the steps, or was it a combination of all of that? Or were there some features which were mentioned earlier, which have become, which were things that helped you along in your learning journey? On that note, were there cool features which you noticed helped you to wayfind or to learn? We'll like to invite you to share what you observed and the sites you found useful later at the end of the session as well. Okay. So earlier, we looked at how users make sense of the links between the resources. In the fifth design element, we focus on the detail and quality of information contained within each resource. So earlier, it's between two things. Now it's within each resource, and how clearly that content or the information is communicated to its users. Okay, moving on to the last design element. The way resources are connected to support progressive goal-oriented skill development, or another way of looking at clear learning pathways, can help learners, as these provide structure, motivation, and focus. So to recap, there are some commonalities we notice in the process of reviewing the 20 sites. We'd love to hear what you think are cool features of learning resource sites for researchers. And I'm sure there are lots of other cool sites and cool features we might not be across. So please feel free to add to the spreadsheet at the end of the session. And with that, I thank you, and I'd like to pass the mic back to Kit.
You're on mute.
Kit, I think you're muted.
I know. I said some really interesting things, and nobody's going to know now what it was. Thank you very much, Adeline. We're going to now pass on to Darcel Melby, and we're going to get Darcel to share the screen so that she can talk us through some of the changes that she made with Nectar, and have a think about those things that Adeline was talking about as you hear Darcel talk about what she looked at. Okay.
Thank you, Kit. Can you see my screen okay there? I'll just skip back to this slide. Is that all good? Yep. Cool. Thank you. All right. So yes, hello, I'm Darcel. I'm the UX engineer at ARDC. Just in case you don't know what a UX engineer role actually is, it's basically a UX designer and a software engineer put together. So my role is a bit of a hybrid role at ARDC. I work on the design of the user experience, so the user interfaces, thinking about the user experience for our websites, but also not just the way things look, but also the way things function. And I do work across a range of the ARDC services now, not just Nectar, but I've done a lot of work. And in this example today, I will be talking about the work that I have done on the Nectar Research Cloud user interfaces and the user support resources that all come together to make up the service of the ARDC Nectar Research Cloud. So I just wanted to show with this slide that we have got a bunch of different web interfaces for the Nectar Research Cloud. Some of those are part of our services, and I've highlighted in bold there the three support related websites that we have. So we have the Nectar Support Centre, which is at the bottom of the screen there in that screenshot. And it's based on a Freshdesk backend. So that's where we have our direct distributed help desk. Use that for all the support tickets. It also has all of our support articles. We have the Nectar Tutorials website, and we also have the Nectar System Status website, which gives updates on how Nectar's going when there's maintenance windows and whatnot. So delving deeper into the actual support services that we offer as part of Nectar, a bunch of different services. We have the support articles, which lives on the Support Centre website, as I mentioned before, which is that Freshdesk website. We also have online tutorials, which is on a separate website that users can step through at their own pace. We've got the help desk team, so all of our users can contact the support desk team whenever they need help in general work hours. And what's really great about our help desk team is that you're actually getting in contact with the node operators. So some really clever technical people, you get direct access to them when you use the Nectar Cloud if you raise a support ticket. We also have our lovely Miriam, the skills specialist for the Nectar Research Cloud, who offers live online training sessions. We have the service announcements website, the starter site, as I mentioned before, so that lets our users know when there's maintenance windows and whatnot. And on the Support Centre website, we also have a little online chat widget that lives there that also gets the users in contact with our help desk team. Okay, so now let's get into it. So what I wanted to do here is actually take a look back at where we were. When I came on board as a UX engineer at ARDC, it was in 2021, and while we already did have a very wonderful, complete set of resources to support our users, you can see here by looking at some of these screenshots that the interfaces for these websites were not very aesthetically pleasing, a little bit clunky, and I've made some points over to the right here about these interfaces, something that anybody who has been using Nectar since back then will know and have noticed. But we certainly did a lot of user research with surveys, and we got feedback back then. And so we did have a lot of reports of what users thought about these websites. So the main things that we noticed, and we've known for quite some time, is that the dashboard, it's a very technical interface, and it is built on the OpenStack dashboard framework. So there are certain limitations with it, but what I've tried to do along the way is improve upon the interfaces and make it a little bit more helpful and user-friendly. It was functional back in the day, but it was quite unintuitive. So you can see down in the bottom left-hand corner here, that was the homepage that you actually got when you logged into the dashboard back in 2021, which isn't very helpful to a user, particularly if you're a first-time user logging in and you get there, you get this limit summary page. You don't know where to go from there, what to do, how you want to use it. So while we did have some great tutorials already existing, we didn't really show the users how they could actually get to those tutorials and get started with the Nectar Research Cloud. We did have a wide range of support articles and tutorials, as I mentioned before, but these weren't very discoverable. So the goal was to make these more discoverable and the ways that we could do that. And we also had a very high volume of support tickets for very common issues in the dashboard. So I'll delve into that a little bit more in the next few slides. As you can see here, following on from that mention of the high volume of support tickets, these are some of the figures. So in the financial year 2021 to 2022, we had over 2,000 support tickets and nearly 4,000 active users. But what we classify an active user is a user that's actually logged into the dashboard within the last 6 months. So while we have a much higher number of users now, we do also have a higher number of active users now, which is at around 4,234 as of the 2023 to 2024 financial year. But you can see that the volume of support tickets has decreased. So what did we do, and what are we still doing, and what will we continue to do as far as UX design practices go? Well, we have always done a few different, I guess, practices of user research. So we look at these support tickets, we look at the common categories and themes for the support tickets, and we use that as part of our pain point mapping and prioritization for tasks. We also look at the Google Analytics for behavior tracking, such as I particularly like the path exploration. So having a look what pages users are going to and where they're going to from that page. So that's all in Google Analytics. The user surveys. So once a year, we put out the Nectar user survey. We're going to be doing it a little bit differently this year. We're actually going to be, rather than emailing them out, we're going to be asking them to engage in the survey from the user interfaces in a pop-up. But we've done that now for the past at least several years, the user survey for Nectar. We also occasionally have, I think it's been we had one last year. We're not having one this year, but probably again next year, a in-person user forum event. And we always have regular meetings. So we have a few different committee meetings that help with the stakeholders, providing input, giving feedback on decisions around the Nectar Cloud user interfaces and the Nectar Cloud service in general. And we also have a regular 6-monthly stakeholder workshop where we get together with the node operators and some of the help desk staff, and we talk about what's been happening in the past 6 months and what users are saying, our goals for the next 6 months ahead. So that's something that's been going on for quite some time and is such a useful part of our UX process. We also have, when we are designing a new feature to go, for example, in the dashboard, often the way that we do this is we'll find out what we need to do. Well, we've already done the pain point mapping and prioritization. We decide what we need to do. I go away and do a couple of mock-ups. Those mock-ups are used in our meetings for discussions. We, from there, decide what we're going to actually prototype and develop. Those prototypes go out to a select number of users for testing. And then once all that is good to go, we launch that new feature make it live in the dashboard or wherever that is, starter site, services, whatnot. Okay, so what did we do as far as... Sorry, are you right, Kit? Have I already gone over time?
No.
Okay, good. Okay, so what did we do as far as user experience improvements go? So having a look here, as I mentioned before, the landing page for the Nectar dashboard back in 2021 was an overview page. However, it didn't really give the users much. So as an example, we designed a new homepage for the Nectar dashboard. We also did new homepages for all of those websites that I showed you earlier. So the support site, basically all of them got new homepages. So I just, with this slide, wanted to talk about the importance of a well-designed homepage for users and getting them to those support materials. So you can see here, as a user is coming into the dashboard for the first time, on the right-hand side, they now have a panel at the top that gives them a welcome to the dashboard message. It gives them access to those support resources, such as the support center, the tutorials, live training as call to actions, gives them a little video with an explanation about the service. It gives them updates on the ARDC news, and also updates such as scheduled outages and announcements and things like that. We also are giving them links to actions that are useful across, whether that's learning resources or actions that they can do directly within the website. What else have I got here? Improved performance. So one thing that I haven't really shown on here that we have done is looked at the performance, such as like speed and optimizing the websites for a bit better than they were before, and also the accessibility. So for example, back in the old days in 2021 and before, a lot of the text and links and colors and things like that wasn't very accessible. So I do have some resources that we can, if anybody wants them, I could put them in the chat at the end for some of the tools that I use to check for example, the contrast of the text to meet web accessibility standards. So that's another aspect of user experience design that we have done over the time. And a big factor of what we did based on the user feedback that we had was that we have improved, and it's always improving, the process for requesting an allocation on the Nectar Research Cloud. So we used to have a lot of feedback about the allocation request form was really big. Users didn't know what to enter when they were asking for cloud resources. For example, I haven't got it on here, how many CPUs they needed and what all of these different resources that they could have. It was just completely unknown to the user. So we had to have a lot of tutorials and support resources about that, just doing that form. Whereas now we've made the interface a bit more intuitive with the way we have structured the form, and we have packaged up the resources into what we call resource bundles. And we do have a little video about that, which I will show you, also put the link in the chat later on. So that's another way that we've listened to feedback and improved the service as a whole. Okay, so the support articles have also had some work. Not only are they always getting updates to the content of the support articles, but we have improved the interface. We've aligned it with the ARDC branding. So that Fresh Desk website got a whole new theme. And we've also improved the search on the Fresh Desk website there. But what I did want to mention is that we've made those articles more discoverable. So we have more links throughout the dashboard, like on the homepage that I showed you before, and the other services that we offer that take you through to those support articles on the Support Centre website. And we have also added the Fresh Desk widget to the dashboard. So now, instead of having to direct the user away to the Support Centre website, we can actually just pop a link in there that launches that support widget down in the bottom right hand corner of the website. And these things have made that experience better because we're not actually taking them away from the website, but still giving them that useful information that they need, just like in that screenshot at the bottom of the page there. Okay, how am I going for time, Kit? Am I still good? Thumbs up. Yep.
You'll need to bunch it up a little bit.
So I won't go into detail on the tutorials, but we have also improved the interface to those a little bit, just to get that relationship so the user knows when they're in a tutorial step versus a tutorial or a tutorial series. It was a little bit clunky before, but I'm going to skim over that one a little bit. Now, I did mention earlier the videos that we've created. This is a very new thing, and we're hoping to create a lot more videos, but it was something I wanted to do from the moment I started working at ARDC, and I only did start working on these videos last year. So we've created only 2 videos so far, but we're trying to reach out, like as Adeline mentioned before, the different types of learners that you have require different mechanisms for learning, and visual and also auditory communication is something that we're trying to tackle with these videos. We haven't gone super deep in the concepts of these videos, but we keep them short and sharp and to the point, and we think they've been really helpful in getting our users that little bit of information that they need to get started, or introducing a new feature of the dashboard. Okay, so this is the final slide. So I think this should be good for time. Okay, so what we have seen from the changes that we've made is that we have had a significant drop in the support ticket volume. We have increased traffic to the tutorials and support articles. We have an overall user satisfaction score improvement. So we do, with our user surveys, get a gauge on the Net Promoter Score, and that has increased over time. And where we're trying to go now, so coming up, we are already in the process of integrating ORCIDs and RAID into the dashboard, which will really help us in the future automate certain things like connecting with the user's publications and research outputs. We are also looking at introducing AI-powered support with an AI search widget in the future. We are... I don't know why I wrote user notification. Oh, yes. So we are looking at improving the overall communication around emails, but also in the dashboard, letting the users know what we need, what we want to bring their attention to in more of a real-time basis. We're also looking at adding a site tour, which we think would be a very useful way to show users around, for example, the dashboard when they first log in. And we're also, because we still do get, as you can see with these quotations from users, that we still do get a lot of feedback around the user interface of the Nectar dashboard being quite advanced and quite technical. So we're looking at potentially developing a new interface for the Nectar Research Cloud in the future that's much more simpler. And so that's all from me. Thank you. I will hand back to Kit.
Thank you very much, Darcel. And we'll save the questions till later, but have a think about the questions that you'd like to ask Darcel about any of those. And while I'm talking, we're going to get Ma is going to start sharing her screen to talk about how they've visualized and created a pathway to make it really easy to understand how to work your way through some quite complex and not altogether same as each other humanities tools. Over to you.
Thank you, Kit. You can all see my slide, okay? Yep. So I'll tell you about a small part of a project called the HAS Task Force that is about guiding researchers in the humanities, arts, and social sciences at the University of Melbourne towards digital tools that enhance their research. For a little bit of what is created. So in 2019, the University of Melbourne decided it wanted to, oh, am I getting cut out? Is it me? Is my text, is my audio?
You were initially, but it actually resolved
Okay.
after a minute. So I'll wave at you or something if it
Okay.
seems like it's cutting out again, but you're fine.
Okay, thank you, Kit. So in 2019, the University of Melbourne decided it wanted to increase the amount of data-led research coming out of the university. And so some very clever people came up with this kind of change theory pyramid of the steps that needed to happen to achieve that. And so as you go kind of up the pyramid, you get increasing researcher independence, but also you need more researcher involvement as well. And so as a researcher coming in through this front door and seeing this massive pyramid and seeing how to climb it, we have the digital skills training team who do the digital capability training. That's part of MDAP as well. And so they teach it's free workshops for all staff and students on VR, Python, and LaTeX. But we noticed that many people in the humanities, arts, and social sciences were not really able to make that much use of this training. They would finish this training, go back to their desks, and when they tried to apply these skills to their own data, they would get stuck. And because they don't have the support network of people experienced in these tools to help, then, oh, sorry, it might be my connection, I guess. Sorry. I can turn off my video. That'll help.
It's okay now. It's okay now.
Yeah. Thanks, Marianne. Marianne was one of our digital skills trainers. So yes, she can fill gaps in as well. We realized that for humanities, arts, and social science researchers who maybe didn't have those support networks around them, it was extra difficult. And so we got a windfall of unused funds during the COVID pandemic, and we were able to use those funds to establish what we call the HAS Task Force. So it was born as a joint initiative between MDAP and the Digital Studio. So this photo here shows David Goodman, who was the director of the Digital Studio within the Faculty of Arts a few years ago. And the objectives of the HAS Task Force is to create cohorts of HAS researchers who have similar needs. And we do that through small workshops, small group targeted help, and peer support. And so since 2023, we've ran 32 workshops. Some of them use R and Python to do things specific to HAS research, like text analysis or data visualization or web scraping. Others are more general. So we're still figuring out what is the right menu of options that works for these researchers and that we can deliver without too much preparation. We have 471 participants so far. 334 of those are unique, which means that there are 74 participants who are attending at least 2 sessions. And so we are, to some degree, creating these cohorts of people that move along with the workshops. So I think that's all I want to say about that. The goals that we've identified for the HAS Task Force is to help people automate things. HAS researchers are incredibly skilled and specialized in their areas of research. And so if there's any task that they do manually that is repetitive, takes a lot of time, is error prone, and doesn't really use those highly specialized skills, we want to help them automate them. So an example is for people who copy and paste things from PDF files into a spreadsheet, for example. We want to help automate that so that they can focus their time on actually interpreting the data using their unique niche expertise. We want to help them discover tools and techniques that can take that digital scholarship one step further. And this is where the project that I'm talking about today comes in. Help them troubleshoot these tools when they're not quite working and connect them with others in the uni doing similar things so that they can start helping each other. And so in this idea of discovering tools and techniques, we developed what we call it the web front door. It doesn't have a very good name yet. But you can access it at this link, and this is really David Goodman's baby as well. It was his idea that a lot of researchers in the humanities, arts, and social sciences know a lot about the research material, what kind of material it is, what kind of things they would like to do with it, but relatively little about digital tools, which means they often don't have the vocabulary to Google things such as, I want to do topic modeling on my data or things like this. So the University of Melbourne actually has a lot of software that it pays for licenses for. There's a lot of training available. There's a lot of support, but finding it is a huge challenge. You often need to know what you're looking for in order to find it in the first place. So for people who don't quite know what they're looking for, it's very difficult. And I'm sure we're not the only university that has this problem. The Research Gateway is not very intuitive. It's not very easy to use. And if you use Google to find how do I do topic modeling, even if you have the vocabulary and the words to Google it, there are so many options that makes it really, really difficult to know which one to choose. So there are maybe 10 Python libraries that do the same thing, 10 R libraries, packages that do the same thing, and then 10 other standalone software programs. Some are free, some are paid. So knowing which one the university has a license for, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So the way we built it is very rudimentary, very low level. So we didn't use any of the UX specialized skills that Darcel mentioned on. So thank you so much for sharing some of those links. I will look into them. What we decided on is putting the data in a spreadsheet on SharePoint so that domain experts who are not necessarily technical experts can update the information and help keep it up to date, because most people know how to work with spreadsheets. Here is where we ran into the first challenge with the options that the university was offering for building websites. So often universities have very limited ways to build websites, and so they want you to use Square Matrix or WordPress or things like that don't have a lot of flexibility in terms of how to structure these things. So we did spend a lot of time building a prototype there and realized it was completely unmaintainable and comprised multiple pages that people had to navigate through, and it was really hard to use. And so essentially, at one point, we got Mitchell Hargraves joining our team, and he used ChatGPT to help him build a template and very rudimentary Python code that uses an HTML template and CSS and Beautiful Soup, which is a Python library, to insert the data from the spreadsheet onto the website. And we host that on GitLab pages. And he was very passionate about accessibility as well. And so he essentially built it like a list of things. So people using screen readers can kind of, it would be straightforward for the screen reader to read what it's like. So I thought I'd show you what it looks like a little bit. So this is what it looks like. It starts with what kind of data you're working with. And so we tried to come up with options that would clearly separate these things. In general, we try to focus on the type of materials versus the method being used to collect it. The exception to that is social media. But for all of the others, it's the type of material. So if you work with survey or interview data that has digitized free text, you'll want to look into the text option. Same if you're studying text in books or newspapers. But if your interviews are recording, then maybe you want to look at audio or video instead. So the important thing to note is that this list of tools is not intended to be exhaustive or comprehensive. It's a curated set of recommendations to help people get started. And I have to make a shout out to the whole team in MDAP. And I know that I saw Kim was online before, so she's a lot of her work has gone behind the text tab in here. Of things that we recommend, that we've used, that we think are recommendable, that we can link to tutorials or ways to learn more about it, and that sorry, I'm just looking at the chat while I'm talking, so sometimes I get distracted. Same as Kit, I can only focus on one thing at a time. And we tend to preference things that are supported by the university, but it doesn't mean that everything that we recommend here is university advised or approved or any of that. So we structured it like a decision tree where you start with the type of data you have, what do you want to do with it? And then we have a few options of how to do this. We've tried to have a few options for each of them. I'm going to just click through the tabs so you get an idea. Text is probably the most complicated one. And so we've color-coded the options depending on the prerequisites. So blue are R packages, pink will be Python packages or libraries. Yellow will be things that require other coding languages. So sometimes there are things that run in Bash or that require JavaScript or something like that. And then in green, it's tools that are browser-based or have their own graphical user interface, and so don't necessarily need required knowledge of any advanced programming languages. But to do some advanced things, sometimes you do need it. And so once you click on a tool, a modal will appear that has a short description of that tool, has a link to where you find it, what's the license, does the university have a license for it, or is it free? How do you learn more? So in our case, we link to the university's digital skills training team's workshops, and what prerequisites does it have as well. So this was heavily inspired. The design itself is, I mentioned to Kit, all of this is, I have no UX expertise or experience, nothing. So it was all intuition based. And so it's, I found this website a few years ago that I really like that does kind of a similar thing for data visualization. So same thing, you start with what type of data you have, and it'll recommend different types of visualizations depending on a few different factors. And once you click on an option, an modal appears, and you can get R example code in R, in Python, and in D3 to generate that similar kind of plot. So I thought this was brilliant. I contacted it's a data scientist called Jan Holt, a French data scientist who created this, and I contacted him for to see what he was using to build it, and he was using same thing, HTML template and Python and code to kind of insert it. So very rudimentary, very low level kind of thing, which is why we ended up doing something similar. So I think I'll finish there because I'm really interested to hear your thoughts and your feedback and what do you think works and doesn't work about the things that I've told you about. In particular, we know that even though we tried to make this as user-friendly as possible, there's a lot of researchers in humanities, arts, and social sciences who still look at this and feel completely overwhelmed and don't want to keep clicking through because it's too much. So we know that there's a lot of things that we can do to improve it. And I'm really interested to hear all of your thoughts and also of other examples that you might have found. So back to you, Kit.
Thank you very much. I really like the fact that we've got two totally different approaches to this explosion of information, making it much easier. The thing I like about this one is under each node, there's so much other information, but it's so short. What I'm going to do is I'm going to change our schedule because I can. I'm going to throw to Adeline to share the spreadsheet where people can share their examples of sites that they like to make sure we've flicked that out. And then we'll go on to questions and chat before I wind it up in the last 5 minutes or so. So over to you, Adeline. I'm just going to share my screen again. And see, we've changed the order.
Yep, thanks very much for that, Kit. So, yeah, as mentioned earlier, this is the spreadsheet where we'll like to learn more about cool sites or cool features you noticed. Help us grow our collection and feel free to add to it. Thank you. Ooh, I think you're muted, Kit.
Thank you.
No worries.
You missed it again. We weren't going to show you that because we thought people would be so fascinated by the fact that here's some really cool websites that they would stop talking to us. So please talk to us still and go and have a look at it afterwards. So I'm just curious about what questions people have for Darcel or Adeline or Mar about this. Over to you, hands up, or you can speak. Or even type it in chat.
Since nobody else seems to want to jump in, I've got a question for Darcel. So I was really interested. You said that you could use the Google Analytics to kind of track people's journey through your website and where they went and their navigation and their whole pathway. And that was one of the things that you used to change the design of the website. So I'm really interested in what was their kind of pathway beforehand, and how did your changes affect that pathway? Like, how was it, the default person coming onto the website, where did they go initially? And then what changes did you make and where did they go after your changes? Does that make sense?
Yes. So I can't actually answer your question to the specifics of that as far as the Nectar Research Cloud is concerned. It is a feature of Google Analytics that I absolutely love, the path exploration, and it's something that I was looking at recently when I was reviewing one of the other ARDC online digital services websites. And it is something that I always have a little look at when I'm doing a review, but I haven't actually had a look back and compared the two of where we were with the path exploration. And I'm actually not sure. I don't remember doing path exploration for it when I first came on board compared to where we are now, but it is one of my favorite parts of Google Analytics, and it's something that I use. And the reason is because you often don't know when you do, like when you're designing a website, you're thinking, okay, well, this is a wonderful page. Let's keep making, put lots of awesome content on this page. But when you have a look at the path exploration, you're looking at it and going, okay, well, users aren't actually going to that page. Or maybe we need to get users to go to that page. Maybe we're not linking to them that page enough. So it is something that I really like. That is a particular feature of Google Analytics.
Cool. Thank you very much, Darcel. I've got another question that's been flicked to me from the chat, and I think I'm going to start with Adeline, but I'm happy for the other two to jump in as well. After seeing so many sites, have you developed any rules of thumb, perhaps a list of must-haves and nice-to-haves? And I'm going to butt in search box at the top. Search box at the top is one of the really things that I've really loved in the other sites. And over to you, Adeline.
Yeah, I think that there are a few features which will help users with wayfinding. So anything that helps users with wayfinding, find out where they are, and to track their learning are useful features to have. But ultimately, it boils down to the objectives of the site and the purpose. So all of those are good things to have, but I think it needs to be driven by what the site is trying to achieve. Yeah, that's a little bit vague, but hopefully that helps. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's why we ended up putting a couple of things that were obviously courses and not resources, because they were so easy to move through, and the way that they decided to share the way to learn to access their infrastructure was through a course, but they were kind of, so there's a couple of little courses on it as well, and they will have a totally different set of features to just something like Mars or something like Darcel's, which is so very different for different purposes. Darcel and Ma, do you have any must-haves?
I wouldn't say so, although it is because a lot of websites do look the same, and a lot of support center websites do look the same. Like they generally do have the search box at the top of the page, and that does help the user's experience because it's intuitive for them to go looking for a search box in a particular area. So I think sometimes following those conventional UI design practices is a must. But, you know, you mentioned search box at the top of the page, but I have in a previous job put on a homepage the search right down at the bottom of the page before, and I found that has been a nice design as well. While on some of the pages you might have it in the typical nav bar area, putting it down at the bottom can be like a last resort thing. So you've looked at all these other things that we really want to show you on this page, and now were you able to find what you're looking for? Like if you can't find it, here's your search box here. So you can sort of bend the rules. I think it's all about being relevant for the specific user and the specific resources and topic.
So if it's a page where you've got a very directed path that you want people to take, whack the search box down the bottom. If it's just, hey, we don't know what you're going to come in and what you're going to do at the top, it kind of makes a bit more sense. Is that?
Yeah, yep, that's right. I think it depends on the situation, but if as you know, the business that's trying to get the users to do something, like for example, in more of a commercial world where you're wanting to convert users to buy a product or whatever, you're going to want to get them there first before you give them okay, what else are you looking for? And you might put that down the bottom of the page. But yeah, there's definitely different scenarios, and you might do that just for one particular landing page. So you might have a landing page that's designed specifically about one new service or one new product that you've got. You want to tell them all that other information first before you direct them off on a different, down a different rabbit hole. So yeah.
That makes
And for
sense.
me, as I said, I have no expertise or knowledge of UX. I don't have a search box in my page at all. So sorry, everyone. For me, it's completely based on intuition. So I won't add anything here because it's not going to be useful.
But you're wanting them to answer which one of these skills do you have? Because I think Adeline, when she first saw yours, she went, oh, the green. I love the green.
Yes. So it might not look like a conventional search box to me, Ma, but it worked for me. The colors helped me with my wayfindings. So thank you.
Yay.
Yeah. And a search box wouldn't work there because you're wanting them to go through filters before they sort of work stuff out. So that makes perfect sense. We've got time. If people have got one more quick question, otherwise I'll go on to some of the other things that we want to tell you that I'm going to share. And you need to leave these type of things still with more questions. And if you've got more questions, then we've done our job. Okay, first thing is feedback. We're actually getting together now and trying to work out what we're going to be doing next year. We've got a full complement of things up until the end of the year decided. So that's the link to the feedback. If you can actually tell us what you'd like to see, people you'd like to hear from in these forums, we can take them where we want to. The idea of it's for the researcher trainer community, it's around digital skills, kind of, sort of, it's wide, and we want to keep it as wide as it works for you. So please let us know that. The next session is going to be in about a month's time. There's a link to it already available. It's about growing and adapting to new audiences and scales. So we're looking at a couple of sites that they actually did training and audience engagement as they were building a platform, and it was an iterative process, and how they actually make it more likely for the platform to be adopted. So it was about sort of iteration and hand in glove development. So what were the strengths and what happened there. So join us for that on the 16th of July. The Digital Research Skills Summit, I said that there'd be something about it. Liz, throwing it over for a couple of minutes for you. One.
Yeah, awesome. Okay. Hey, everyone, guess what? You will be the very first people who have received these links to our to register for our Digital Research Skills Summit in October, just before e-research at Griffith University on the South Bank campus. So we have just opened the call for proposals. We want to make this a really participant-driven event, and we have some awesome volunteers from this community who are in this room today, who have been part of the process, and I am very thankful for your contributions so far. Call for papers is open, and also you can register via that link too through Eventbrite. So we encourage you to go and do that, please.
And then we can do this in person. Okay.
Yeah.
Obligatory until October slide, International Data Week. Get your registrations in for this great event in Brisbane, because on the 15th of July, the early bird registrations stop. So now's the time to sort of get your stuff together, because International Data Week, then Skills Summit on the Monday, and then e-research. So, you know, make 2 weeks of it if you need to, but certainly come to IDW, please. If you would like to contact us, that's our contact details. Come back and see us next month or the month after. You're very welcome. But I'll say thank you very much to Ma, Darcel and Adeline for joining us, and for the community who have made this happen. Thank you very much. Ciao.
Thank you all.
Thanks, everyone.